a whisper before the fire. Some nights begin softly, like a sigh pressed into the folds of time. The air feels hushed, and the world seems to breathe slower, as if it remembers something old, something kind. A single candle burns somewhere far away, its flame trembling against a wall of stone. The light dances over wooden bowls, a chipped mug, a loaf of bread waiting patiently for company. Outside, the wind moves through fields that glimmer faintly under the moon, brushing past cottages that sleep beneath thatched roofs. There are no wheels turning, no lights humming, no rush in the air. Only the sound of breath and the faint rhythm of a distant stream, steady, soft, eternal. Smoke curls gently from a chimney, carrying with it the scent of wood and warmth. Inside, a pot simmers over the fire, and a pair of tired hands stirs it slowly, carefully, as if time itself could be soothed. It is a world without hurry, where every sound has its place, the crackle of flame, the sigh of wind, the whisper of bread breaking in two. A place where food was not only sustenance, but a language, quiet, thoughtful, full of care. Here, people did not eat to escape time, but to share it. A piece of fried apple glistening with honey, a slice of soft cheese carried in a cloth pouch, a cake baked slowly with sweetened grain. Each one was a small comfort, a gentle way of saying, "We are alive, and it is enough." So, close your eyes. Let the night wrap softly around you. Feel the warmth of the fire, the weight of calm. The past is near, not loud or distant, but breathing quietly beside you. Come closer and listen. Tonight, we'll wander through the kitchens of long ago, where the first fast foods were never fast at all, only warm, simple, and made with love. Fried apple, fritters, medieval dream-telling. There's a softness to the memory of apples. The way they rest in a wooden bowl, their skins shining faintly in the candlelight. In the Middle Ages, apples were among the sweetest gifts nature could offer. They hung low on crooked trees, blushing red and green against the grey of the countryside. Farmers picked them slowly, hands chilled by the wind, baskets filled with the scent of autumn. When evening came, kitchens glowed with quiet work. A woman might stand beside a fire, slicing apples into small, neat pieces. The air would fill with the sound of a knife brushing against the wood of a cutting board. Slow, steady, rhythmic. The fruit was tart, just enough to wake the tongue. Into a bowl went a handful of flour, a cracked egg, a little milk if there was some to spare. Sometimes, on luckier days, a splash of ale, not too much, just enough to make the batter light and airy. The mixture thickened under her spoon. Outside, the wind sighed against the shutters. Inside, the fire whispered. She dipped each piece of apple into the batter, coating it gently, as though tucking it in for sleep. The fat in the pan began to murmur, a low, bubbling song. When the apples entered, they sizzled softly, releasing tiny sparks of sound. The smell was warm and golden, the kind that seems to curl around the heart. Each fritter turned a tender shade of brown, the edges crisp and delicate. The cook waited, patient, unhurried. There was no rush in her world. The fritters needed time, and she gave it freely. When they were ready, she lifted them from the oil, letting the drops fall back into the pan. The fritters rested on a piece of cloth, cooling, their steam rising like breath on a winter morning. Later, a drizzle of honey might find its way across their surface. Not too much. Just enough to glisten beneath the glow of the hearth. Sometimes, when honey was scarce, a sprinkle of coarse sugar would do. It crackled faintly when it touched the warm crust. The scent of apples and sweetness mingled, drifting through the small room, mingling with wood smoke and calm. In the quiet corners of medieval towns, fritters like these were comfort itself. Children waited for them eagerly, eyes bright in the dim light. Travelers, cold from the road, found them sold by street cooks who worked by flickering lanterns. The fritters were small, but they held warmth, a soft, edible kindness against the night. There was nothing hurried about them. No rapping, no clatter, no noise. Just the simple sound of a ladle dipping, of oil murmuring, of laughter that came and went like the breeze. Each fritter told a story of hands that worked and hearts that rested between tasks. The batter, though humble, had its secret rhythm. Flour, egg, a touch of ale, stirred not with haste, but with care. The apples inside softened as they cooked, their tartness melting into sweetness, their edges yielding under golden crusts. If you bit into one while it was still warm, the steam rose softly, carrying with it the perfume of fruit and hearth. And in that moment, that small, tender moment, it was easy to forget the cold. Easy to believe that life could be simple again, just bread and air and apples. Outside, the night deepened, stars trembled above fields gone to rest. The cottage windows glowed faintly, a scatter of warmth in the dark. Inside, someone placed a plate of fritters near the fire. A child reached for one, carefully. The crust broke beneath tiny fingers, crumbs scattering like whispers. The honey shone faintly in the light. Each bite was slow, gentle, as though time itself had stopped for the flavor to unfold. Sweet, soft, faintly spiced from the oil. It wasn't luxury, it wasn't celebration, it was life, quiet and kind. In the towns beyond, people spoke of fritters as common fare, but they carried something more, a shared memory of warmth, of hands passing plates, of moments when nothing mattered but the next bite. The cooks who made them didn't write recipes, they didn't measure with cups or spoons. They used memory and instinct and years of repetition until the motion became music and the result became rest. Sometimes, on long winter evenings, the scent of frying apples lingered in narrow streets. It mixed with the cold air, with the sound of distant voices, with the echo of hooves on cobblestones. For a few heartbeats, that scent could make even the poorest passerby smile. And in that faint sweetness lay a promise that tomorrow there would still be apples, still be warmth, still be something to hold on to. The fritter, though small, carried the quiet spirit of its time. It was the comfort of the ordinary, it was the flavor of patience. And as it cooled, as the last traces of honey glowed against its crust, it seemed to hum a lullaby of its own. In that song there was no rush, no clamor of the modern world, just the peace of a kitchen half in shadow, the whisper of oil, the hush of slow turning, the kind of peace that belonged not just to sleep, but to the heart, the soft knowing that the simplest things are often the sweetest. So, if you ever find yourself restless at night, think of that kitchen, the apples sliced, the batter stirred, the warmth of the pan rising. Think of the woman waiting by the fire, unhurried, of the child smiling, crumbs on their lips, of the night outside, cold but still. And perhaps as you drift, you'll smell the faint echo of those fritters, sweet, golden, tender as the past. A reminder that even in the quietest times, comfort can be made from the humblest things. A bit of fruit, a bit of flour, and a bit of warmth. That's all it ever took. Fresh cheese, made in stillness. There is something tender about the beginning of cheese. It starts as milk, quiet, simple, white as morning light. In the cool air of a medieval kitchen, a pot is set above the fire. The milk warms slowly, not rushing, just breathing with the rhythm of the flame. The air smells faintly sweet, soft and pure. As the heat rises, something gentle begins to happen. The milk trembles as though listening to the fire's song. A spoon stirs it in slow circles, tracing time itself. Then comes the moment when the milk begins to part ways with itself, forming tiny clouds of curd. The liquid clears to a pale gold, like sunlight caught in water. There is no hurry. The curds are lifted with quiet care, spoonful by spoonful, placed into a cloth to rest. The whey drips away one drop at a time, tapping softly into a wooden bowl below. The sound is delicate, like a clock without hands, marking the stillness of the afternoon. When the dripping stops, what remains is something humble and kind. Fresh cheese. Soft, creamy, pale ivory in color. It carries the scent of the meadow, the echo of the cow's breath, the patience of the hands that made it. It tastes of salt and simplicity, of work done honestly and shared without ceremony. In villages long ago, this cheese was never wasted. Wrapped in a square of linen, it traveled with the workers to the fields. It rested in the pockets of travelers near bread and apples, ready for when the road grew long. Its salt kept hunger quiet, its texture gentle against the tongue. There was comfort in its mildness, a reminder that the simplest things often last the longest. Children learned to love it early. When they were hungry between chores, a small piece would be offered, cool from the morning, smooth against the fingers. It didn't melt away. It stayed, patient, nourishing. To them, it tasted like care. To the old, it tasted like memory. In some places, people pressed herbs into the soft surface, thyme, mint, or bits of chive from the garden. The herbs would tint the edges green, releasing their scent slowly as the cheese breathed in the air. Others preferred it plain, pure as the day it was made. Cheese like this didn't belong to kings or feasts. It belonged to the road, to the worker, to the quiet hunger between sunrise and dusk. When the day grew hot and sweat touched the brow, a bite of cheese could calm the body. Salty, cool, grounding. It paired with bread that was firm and slightly coarse, the kind baked in stone ovens by hands that knew no measure but touch. Together they made a meal that was humble but whole. Sometimes the cheese was crumbled into porridge, melting slowly in the warmth. Sometimes it was eaten with a drizzle of honey when the day's work was done. It was a companion to every table, whether grand or small, a thread of comfort woven through the lives of many. There is a quiet dignity in such food. It asks for nothing, gives what it can, and lingers only as long as needed. It nourishes without fuss, fills without fanfare. In the still air of an old kitchen, you can imagine it sitting there, wrapped in linen, waiting like a pause in the day. Even now, if you close your eyes, you might picture it, the cheese resting on a wooden board, a thin knife nearby, a candle burning low. The walls hum faintly with warmth. Outside, the wind carries the scent of grass and earth. Inside, everything feels soft and slow. Perhaps someone sits at the table, weary from the fields. They break a piece of bread, place a little cheese upon it, and eat without a word. The moment is small, but whole. It belongs to no story but its own, a quiet act of care, repeated across centuries. This cheese doesn't demand to be remembered. Yet it endures, gentle and steadfast, like an old lullaby that never quite fades. It holds the essence of what keeps people going. the warmth of effort, the calm of sustenance, the beauty of enough. So, as night deepens and breath slows, imagine that taste, soft, slightly salty, alive with the whisper of milk and fire. Feel its calmness on your tongue. Let it melt, not in haste, but in peace. Somewhere, long ago, a drop of milk turned to curd, and someone smiled. And that was all it took, a moment of care, a bit of warmth, and time enough to wait.
Turnip Pie, the warm taste of earth.
The story of Turnip Pie begins in quiet kitchens where the days were measured by sunlight and the smell of wood smoke. Outside, frost often touched the edges of the fields. Inside, warmth gathered around the hearth where someone peeled a handful of pale roots. Their skin was thin, their scent faintly sharp, like the memory of rain. Each turnip was sliced, boiled until soft, then mashed into a smooth white cloud. A few eggs were cracked, their golden yolks glowing like tiny suns against the cool mash. A drizzle of honey followed, thick, slow, amber in color, and then a scattering of chopped dried fruit. Raisins, sometimes figs, sometimes whatever the season still offered. The spoon moved gently, folding everything together, quiet and patient. A round of dough waited nearby, rolled thin and even. The mixture was poured in, spreading with a soft sigh. The pie was placed into the oven, where firelight flickered against its edges. The smell came first, earthy, mellow, faintly sweet. It drifted through the small room, curling up into the rafters, finding its way to anyone passing by. There was nothing rich about turnip pie, but there was something real. It was a meal for ordinary people, the kind who worked with their hands, who rose before dawn and slept when the stars returned. It was a dish made from what was left, yet it held the comfort of something whole. As it baked, the air grew still. The crust began to color, soft brown at first, then deeper, touched by the smoke of the fire. The surface glistened faintly where honey met heat. When it was ready, the pie was lifted out carefully, placed on a wooden board to rest. Someone might cut it while it was still warm. The knife would sink slowly through the crust, revealing the pale gold filling inside. Steam would rise, smelling of earth and sweetness and something gentle, the quiet victory of making do. A slice was enough to fill the evening, to ease the hunger that came from long days in the fields. Children would sit nearby, their hands tucked close to the warmth. They didn't ask for more than what they had. A bite of pie, a bit of laughter, a moment of calm. The world outside could wait. Turnip pie tasted of patience, of the soil that gave, and of the hands that learned to take only what was needed. The sweetness was light, just enough to remind the tongue that life could still be kind. The texture was soft, the crust slightly crisp, the scent lingering like a memory of home. Sometimes a traveler might be offered a piece, wrapped in a scrap of cloth. It would hold its warmth for a while, carried along cold roads under grey skies. Even when cooled, it spoke of the fire that baked it. Quiet, steady, generous in its own small way. There was comfort in such simplicity. The kind of comfort that doesn't shout, doesn't boast, but hums softly beneath the noise of living. The kind that endures. And perhaps that's why, long after the fires dimmed and the night settled in, the scent of turnip pie still lingered. It was a reminder that warmth doesn't always come from luxury. Sometimes it rises from the humblest ingredients, from care, from time. So if you ever find yourself listening to the soft breathing of evening, think of that kitchen, the wooden spoon, the small oven glowing faintly, the slow rhythm of a life that knew how to turn the simplest things into comfort. Turnip pie was never meant to impress, it was meant to soothe. A meal not for the feast, but for the quiet, for the end of a long day, for hands at rest, for the heart that wants only peace.
And as the night deepens and your eyes grow heavy, let the thought of it stay with you.
A warm crust, a soft filling, a sweetness that hums instead of sings. A piece of earth turned into kindness. Meat pasty carried by the road. In the hush of early morning, the kitchen wakes before the world does. The hearth glows softly, embers breathing light into the shadows. A wooden table waits, dusted with flour, and beside it rests a small mound of dough, simple, pliant, ready. The dough is rolled thin, its surface cool beneath patient hands. Each motion is slow and steady, as though guided by rhythm rather than time. Outside, the fog lingers low over the fields, but inside, everything feels warm, deliberate, and calm. On another board, bits of meat are cut. Pork if the family is lucky, lamb if it's spring, rabbit or pigeon when the hunt has been kind. The knife moves with care, not haste. The scent of raw earth and spice fills the air. Onions chopped finely, a sprinkle of salt, a touch of pepper if it can be spared. The mixture is humble but hearty, something that promises strength more than pleasure. The meat is spooned into the center of the dough, and the edges are folded over like closing a letter. Fingers pinch the seam together, sealing warmth inside. Each pasty looks small, curved and perfect in its own quiet way. One by one they're laid near the fire. The crust begins to change, pale to golden, soft to firm. The scent that rises is full, savory, gentle, comforting. Outside a rooster calls and the world begins to stir. When the pasties are ready, they fit easily into a cloth or a hand. They are food for travelers, for workers, for anyone who walks farther than comfort can reach. The crust keeps the heat inside, a little miracle of patience and practicality. On the road, one could eat without stopping. The bread-like shell kept fingers clean, the filling warm. In a time when meals were rare pauses rather than pleasures, the meat pasty felt like kindness tucked into pastry. Those who carried it, farmers, shepherds, messengers, would unwrap it hours later beneath grey skies or among whispering trees. The crust would crack softly, releasing a curl of steam. The scent of cooked meat and baked dough would rise into the cold air. A small human warmth against a large indifferent world. Children loved them too. In villages, when markets opened, vendors sold smaller pasties from baskets lined with cloth. The edges browned prettily, the seams brushed with egg or milk to shine. The air around those stalls always smelled like home, no matter where one came from. There was nothing fancy about it, no feast, no silverware, no table needed. Yet every bite was complete. The salt of the meat, the sweetness of the crust, the faint smoke from the hearth. It was nourishment wrapped in memory. Sometimes a pasty was saved for later, carried for days. By then it had cooled, but it was still good, firm, dependable, the way certain foods become a friend. People trusted it to last, to fill, to comfort. It was food that understood distance, and there was something quietly beautiful in that. The way the dough folded over the filling was like an embrace. The way it fit in the hand was almost human. At night, after the day's work ended, someone might warm the leftover pasty on a flat stone by the fire. The crust would grow crisp again and the scent would return. Familiar, loyal, unchanged. A meal both simple and steady, like the people who made it. It is easy now to overlook such things. We are surrounded by food that travels farther, arrives faster, shouts louder. But the meat pasty whispered. It asked for no attention, only appreciation. It was the taste of endurance, of work and quiet satisfaction. If you could hold one now, you'd feel its warmth sink into your palm the same way it did for someone hundreds of years ago. You'd bite into it and find not just meat and crust, but time, folded, baked and shared. So let this story rest with you tonight. Imagine the sound of the dough being rolled, the faint hiss of the fire, the rhythm of footsteps on an old dirt path. Imagine the world when food was made not for haste, but for care. A small pie in a large hand, a meal that fits between the hours of labor and the silence of evening. A comfort built to travel, carried by those who had far to go, and yet never forgot the warmth of home. Candied Fennel Seeds, breath of sugar. In the soft light of afternoon, when the air feels still and the world moves a little slower, a small sweetness waits in a wooden bowl. At first glance, it seems almost nothing. Tiny seeds, pale and glimmering faintly under a veil of sugar. Yet they hold more than their size suggests, a whisper of spice, a memory of warmth, and a kind of joy too delicate to name. The story of these sugared fennel seeds begins not with grand kitchens or banquets, but with patience. Fennel was a plant beloved in medieval times, fragrant, humble, a friend to both cook and healer. Its seeds were gathered when the air grew dry, carried home in cloth pouches that smelled faintly of sun and earth. In small pots, sugar was melted down, a precious thing then made from cane or honey, stirred gently until it shimmered like glass. Into that liquid sweetness went the fennel seeds, handful by handful, tossed and coated, lifted and cooled. Each movement was soft, measured, almost tender. The sugar clung to the seeds like frost clings to grass at dawn. When they hardened, they gleamed faintly. Not bright, not showy, but enough to catch the light if you looked closely. Each seed was a tiny treasure, crisp at first bite, then melting slowly, revealing the warm green note beneath the sugar. A sweetness that spoke softly rather than sang. People would keep them in small jars or pouches to nibble through the quiet hours. Travelers took them on long rides, tucked between pages or wrapped in cloth. Ladies of the court shared them after meals, their laughter gentle, the seeds crackling faintly between their teeth. Children loved them too, the way the sugar gave way to spice, the way the flavor lingered after the taste had gone. There was something thoughtful about eating them. They were never rushed. One seed at a time, one moment of sweetness folded into the day. A pause between words, a way to let time rest. The flavor was simple, but full. The first touch was sweet, delicate, light, a drifting cloud of sugar. Then came the faint heat of the fennel, like a spark that didn't burn but warmed instead. Together they became balance, the kind of harmony that only quiet things know. In the stillness of a medieval afternoon, perhaps someone sat by the window watching the dust float through a beam of sun. A bowl of candied seeds by their side. The air thick with the scent of herbs, of baking, of slow time. Each bite a tiny reminder that sweetness doesn't always need to be loud. Sometimes it can whisper. Merchants once carried these little seeds across markets, packed in small paper cones or pouches made from cloth. Their scent was faint but distinct, the kind that follows you gently long after you've passed. Buyers smiled when they saw them, for they were small luxuries, gifts to the senses, proof that even in modest days there could be pleasure. In some homes they were served after meals, meant to soothe the stomach and sweeten the breath. In others, They were simply shared. Handfuls passed around between friends or family, laughter rising softly with the crackle of sugar. Imagine it, a table of wood worn smooth with years, the soft hum of voices, a candle trembling in its holder. Someone reaches for the bowl, takes a few seeds, lets them roll between their fingers. Outside, the wind brushes against the shutters. Inside, time seems to sigh and settle. The taste lingers. Sweet first, then warm, then gone, leaving behind only calm. There is a lesson hidden in those seeds, perhaps. That delight can come small. That warmth can be found in a moment, not a feast. That even the simplest things, a seed, a touch of sugar, a bit of care, can turn the ordinary into something almost holy. And so they became more than a treat. They became rhythm. One bite, one pause, one breath. A way to slow the day without stopping it. Now, if you close your eyes, you might almost taste it, the crisp shell cracking gently, the sweetness spreading, the fennel's soft spice rising after. You might hear the faint sound it makes between your teeth, a tiny echo of centuries past. In that quiet, let yourself rest. Think of those who made them long ago. Stirring sugar, drying seeds, watching the sun fade through old glass windows. Think of how something so small could carry comfort through time. Perhaps you have something sweet near you now, perhaps you don't. Either way, imagine holding one of those little seeds in your palm, light as air, shining faintly. You turn it between your fingers, feel its smoothness, and for a moment, you are part of the same stillness that filled those kitchens long ago. The same warmth, the same gentle care. Then you taste it. The sweetness comes first, soft and slow, followed by a breath of spice that wakes the tongue. You exhale and it feels like a sigh. A sweetness that fades but leaves peace behind, like all the best things once did. Honey cake, sweetness after the fire. The warmth begins long before the first bite. In a quiet kitchen, the air hums with the soft crackle of fire, and the scent of honey drifts gently through the room, golden, thick, and alive. On the table, flour waits in a simple wooden bowl, pale as morning light. Beside it, the honey glows like captured sun. When the two meet, the sound is soft. A slow folding, a patient stirring. The mixture thickens under the spoon, smooth and steady, like calm water turning to silk. No rush, no hurry. The dough is heavy, rich with sweetness that comes not from sugar, but from time. In the days of the Middle Ages, honey was more than flavor. It was warmth, medicine, treasure. The bees that made it were cared for with quiet respect. Their hives were gifts of gold hidden among the fields. Every drop gathered carried the scent of flowers, the breath of summer, the hum of life itself. When the honey met the flour and fire, it became something new, something meant to last. The batter was poured into earthen molds, smooth on the surface, rough at the edges. The fire burned low, patient. The cake baked slowly, its edges darkening, its center holding the soft glow of warmth. The scent filled the room, a deep sweetness that mingled with smoke and wood and air. It was the kind of smell that drew people close, made conversation quiet, made time seem to slow. When the cake was done, it was firm but moist, with a crumb that yielded easily under touch. The surface gleamed faintly, sticky with a sheen of honey that caught the firelight. It was not fancy, not light, but it was full. A slice of honey cake could last for days. Wrapped in cloth, it stayed soft, protected by the honey's gentle gift. Travelers carried it across long roads, and soldiers kept it for cold nights by campfire glow. It didn't spoil easily, it didn't ask for more, it was loyal food, simple, steadfast, kind. When the evenings grew cold, a small piece with warm milk or ale could bring comfort that lingered. The sweetness wasn't loud. It rested on the tongue, quiet and calm. It spoke of hearth and home, of hands that worked carefully, of care that asked for nothing in return. Families shared it during winter feasts when nights were long and candles short. Children would sit close, their eyes bright in the dim light, waiting for their slice, the treat that promised warmth more than indulgence. It tasted of the year that came before, of meadows and blooms, of bees humming in soft air. Every bite carried that memory forward into the heart of winter, reminding those who ate that light had once existed and would return again. There's a tenderness in that thought, that sweetness can endure even through the coldest days, that a cake made of flour and honey could hold a piece of the sun within it. Perhaps that is why honey cake was loved so dearly. It wasn't just food, it was a promise. That warmth could be made even when warmth seemed far away. So imagine it now, a cold evening, wind against the walls, the world wrapped in quiet. A small fire burns low. On the table, a loaf of honey cake rests, still fragrant. You cut a slice. The knife moves slowly, the crust yielding with a soft sigh. Steam rises faintly, golden in the firelight. You take a bite, sweet, warm, gentle. The kind of sweetness that doesn't demand but gives, and for a moment, everything feels still. The fire hums softly. The world outside disappears, and the taste lingers. Calm, rich, endless. A slice of peace baked in honey and thyme. Fried fish, skin, the sound of crisp air. There is a sound that belongs only to kitchens near water, a soft hiss, a sigh of oil, a whisper of salt. It begins when the pan warms and the first piece of fish skin meets the heat. The world outside fades for a moment, replaced by that tender crackle, the quiet song of something simple being made with care. In the dim light of early evening, someone stands by the hearth. The air smells faintly of smoke, of the day's catch, of the tide that never sleeps. A bowl of cleaned fish skin waits nearby, cut into small, thin pieces, pale silver against a wooden surface. Each strip is light, almost weightless, yet full of promise. The oil is ready. A spoonful falls into the pan, spreading in a small shimmer. One by one, the pieces of skin are dropped in and the sound rises. Shh, delicate and alive. Tiny bubbles gather, dancing like stars caught in water. The cook stirs gently, careful not to rush. As the skin turns, it begins to curl. The edges brown, the color deepens. The air fills with a warm, savory scent that carries across the room. It's the kind of smell that draws people near without meaning to, that faint, delicious reminder that something is crisping, something golden is almost ready. The sound softens as the oil quiets. The pieces are lifted out, laid upon a cloth to rest. For a moment, the world holds still. The fish skin cools and the once soft surface becomes crisp. Thin as paper, light as breath. A small piece breaks with a clean snap, echoing softly like frost beneath a boot. In river towns and by the sea, this was a familiar treat. Fishermen, after long hours of hauling nets, would save the skins instead of throwing them away. Nothing was wasted. Every part of the day's work had its purpose. The skins became snacks, quick and satisfying, made from what the water had already given. Children loved them. Their laughter mingled with the sound of crunching tiny hands reaching for another piece. The salt stayed on their lips, the warmth in their cheeks. For them, it wasn't a poor man's food. It was joy, simple and unguarded. Adults found comfort in it too. A small dish of crisp fish skin shared with ale or mead at day's end was enough to ease the weariness of the body. The flavor, salty, smoky, faintly sweet, reminded them of home, of nets drying in the sun, of quiet evenings when the sea was kind. Sometimes spices were added, a touch of pepper, a squeeze of lemon, a pinch of herbs, but even without, it was enough. Its beauty lay in its honesty. It was food that asked for nothing extra and yet gave back warmth, sound, and memory. In the hush of a medieval night, after the boats were tied and the lamps were dimmed, you might have heard that gentle crunch echoing faintly through the air. The sound of contentment, small and human. The fish skin glistened faintly under the light of the fire. When touched, it was so thin it could almost flutter. But when bitten, it broke in the softest way, like delicate paper giving way to air. The taste was clean and deep, salt and sea woven together, familiar and kind. It didn't fill the belly like bread or meat, but it filled something quieter. A kind of small happiness, the kind that comes when the day's work is done and the night feels calm. A handful of crisp fish skin, a quiet room, a heart at ease. Travelers along the coast spoke of such snacks fondly, things made quickly, eaten slowly, shared freely. In inns by the shore, bowls of them were passed around as the wind knocked against the shutters. The fire flickered, voices murmured low, and someone laughed softly at nothing in particular. It was not a feast, but it felt like enough. Food like this has a way of staying even when times change. Its memory lingers not because of grandeur, but because of gentleness. The ease of its making, the lightness of its touch. If you listen closely now, you can almost hear it, that soft, fleeting crackle of something crisp meeting air. The sound that once filled kitchens and docksides alike, marking the end of another day near the sea. Close your eyes and imagine it, the glow of a fire, the smell of oil and salt, the calm after work is done. A small plate rests on the table, warm and shining. You pick up a piece between your fingers, thin, curved, golden. It feels fragile, almost too delicate to hold. Then you take a bite. The sound is small but bright, a whisper of satisfaction. The taste arrives slowly, salty first, then warm, then a little sweet. It melts away before you expect it to, leaving only a trace of the sea and a sense of ease. There, in that small moment, you understand why it mattered, why people kept making it long after hunger had passed. It wasn't just a meal, it was the sound of comfort, the rhythm of life near water, the reminder that even the smallest things can bring peace. The fire hums. The sea outside breathes. You finish your piece and feel the night settle softly around you. The last crackle fades, but the warmth remains. Some things were made to be small. Just enough to quiet the heart, just enough to remind you that you've arrived home. Bread and ale, quiet comfort. In the still hours after work, when the sun has already slipped behind the rooftops and the air smells faintly of earth and smoke, someone tears a piece of bread, old, dry, nearly forgotten. Its crust is hard, its center pale and stubborn. Once, it was soft, but the days have made it tough. Still, there is a way to bring it back. A jug of ale waits nearby, its surface trembling faintly in the dim light. It's not strong ale, just a mild brew, thin, amber, and sweet with the scent of malt. When poured, it murmurs softly, fizzing with tiny sighs. The bread is placed into a wooden bowl, and the ale is poured over it in slow, careful streams. The sound is quiet, almost secret, the ale soaking into the bread, softening it grain by grain. What was dry begins to yield, what was stiff begins to sigh. The hard crust grows tender again, the inside turns heavy with warmth and scent. It smells faintly of sweetness, faintly of barley, faintly of rest.
This was a poor man's supper, humble, filling, made from what remained. Yet there was beauty in its simplicity. No fire was needed, no skill, no silverware, just bread, ale, and patience. In the hush of a medieval kitchen, that was enough.
Those who came home weary, carpenters, shepherds, labourers, knew this meal well. Their hands rough from work, their eyes tired from the fields, they sat in silence as the bread soaked. Some would add a pinch of salt, others a drop of honey, if luck allowed. But most left it plain, trusting the ale to do its quiet work. When lifted with a spoon, the bread had changed. It was soft again, heavy but kind. The flavour was gentle. The faint sweetness of malt mingled with the quiet bitterness of hops. It filled the stomach, slowly, warmly, without rush. A comfort not of luxury, but of familiarity.
Sometimes it was eaten cold, straight from the bowl. Other times it was warmed near the fire, thickening as it cooked, turning almost into porridge. Either way, it carried the same feeling, that of being cared for by something small, something steady.
To eat it was to rest, to taste the end of the day. For those who had little, this dish was a reminder that even worn things could be made new. Bread too old to chew became soft again, drink turned into sustenance, and emptiness turned into calm. It was a quiet kind of alchemy, not of gold, but of grace. In towns and villages it became a common sight. Bowls of softened bread resting on wooden tables, steam rising faintly as people leaned close. The smell was familiar, homey, honest, grounding. There was no need to speak. Everyone knew this meal by heart. Children, too, would have a spoonful now and then. They didn't love the bitterness of the ale, but they liked the warmth, the way the bread seemed to hug the taste of honey if it was there. It filled them, held them still, made them sleepy. In the quiet after eating, the world slowed, the fire settled, the day exhaled, and the mind eased. There was no noise, no rush, only the soft sound of bowls being set aside, the faint hum of breath, the warmth spreading through tired limbs. Food like this didn't seek to impress, it sought to comfort. It was made not to dazzle the senses, but to remind them of enoughness. In its sweetness and its slight bitterness, there was truth, that life too could be both, and still be good. If you could sit there now, at that table, with that bowl, you'd feel it too. The air dim and quiet, the wood worn smooth beneath your hands, the taste simple but deep. A meal that doesn't talk, doesn't shine, doesn't try. It just exists, steady and kind. Take a bite in your mind. The bread is soft now, the ale cool and fragrant. It tastes of barley and time, of work done and peace earned. You chew slowly, and the world grows small. Just the bowl, the breath, the quiet warmth moving through you. Outside, the wind stirs, the night deepens, but inside, everything feels still. There, in that moment, you understand why this humble meal endured. Because sometimes comfort doesn't come from plenty, but from patience. From what we make out of what remains. from the sweetness that lingers even after the bitterness fades, bread and ale. Simple, steady, soft. A bowl of warmth at the end of a long day. A reminder that even the smallest kindness can feed the soul. Bread and wine. Soft light after evening. In the quiet corners of a warm room, the night begins slowly. A small fire hums behind the hearth, its light soft and golden. On the table, a loaf of bread rests, toasted until its edges are crisp, its heart still tender. Beside it waits a jug of wine, deep red and calm, catching the glow of the flames. This was not a meal for the hungry, but for those who had time. The kind of dish that invited stillness. Something to be made, then lingered over. In homes where comfort was known but not flaunted, people gathered close as the wine was poured into a small pot and warmed over the fire. The air changed as it heated. The sharp scent softened, turning round and mellow like a sigh at the end of the day. A touch of spice was added, cinnamon, a bit of clove, maybe a thin slice of orange if one could be spared. The smell filled the room with quiet sweetness, neither heavy nor loud, just enough to feel like warmth you could breathe in. When it was ready, the wine shimmered faintly, thin steam rising in delicate ribbons. The toasted bread was placed in a wide bowl, and the warm wine poured over it slowly. The sound was small, almost secret. A faint hiss, the bread yielding under the liquid, the scent of fruit and spice deepening. It was simple, yet graceful. The bread softened, darkened, drank in the wine until it glowed a deep rose color. The dried fruit, figs, raisins, bits of apple, sank into the mix, releasing their sweetness into every bite. The result was neither drink nor meal, but something in between. It was meant to be eaten slowly with a spoon or by hand as the firelight flickered and conversations faded into comfortable silence. Each bite was soft and warm, tasting faintly of earth and vineyard, of sweetness made gentle by time. The wine's warmth stayed long after the taste was gone, spreading through the chest like quiet contentment. In wealthier homes, this dish was a comfort after the noise of the day, a way to end things softly. Guests would talk in low voices, spoons clinking faintly against bowls. Outside, the night stretched wide and cold, but inside there was peace. Even those who could afford much more seemed to love this modest luxury. There was something soothing about it, the way the bread and wine came together, two old companions sharing warmth. The spices added only whispers, never shouts. It was indulgence wrapped in stillness. And in that stillness, stories were told, laughter came gently, and the hours slipped by unnoticed. Sometimes a candle would burn low as someone stirred the last bit of bread through the dark liquid, watching it glisten like ruby glass. The taste lingered, sweet, mellow, faintly spiced with a warmth that seemed to stay in the breath itself. It carried something deeper than pleasure, a reminder of ease, of safety, of time that could be savored. There is beauty in that slowness, in food that asks you not to rush but to pause, to let the warmth of wine soften the hardness of bread, and perhaps of the day itself. If you were to sit there now with that bowl before you, you might feel it too. The scent rising softly, the taste both bright and calm, the firelight touching the rim of the cup, the world outside growing quieter with every breath. You take a spoonful. The bread melts on your tongue, carrying with it the flavor of the wine. A little sweet, a little deep, a little wistful. It's enough to make you close your eyes. Somewhere beyond the walls the night deepens, but inside you sit in the golden hush, with the warmth of the meal resting gently in you. It feels like a promise that the world, for a while, is kind. A meal not for need, but for peace. A taste of quiet at the end of the day. Dried fruit, sunlight remembered. There is a sweetness that carries the memory of the sun, soft, deep and golden even in the coldest months. It lives in the folds of dried fruit, in the way a raisin glows like amber when the light touches it, or how a dried fig bends gently between the fingers, still breathing warmth from a summer long gone. In a world without sugar as we know it, fruit was nature's treasure. When the trees were heavy with ripeness, people worked quickly. Hands stained with juice, they sliced figs and plums, laid grapes upon woven mats, spread them beneath the patient sky. The air shimmered with heat and the hum of insects, and the scent of sweetness hung everywhere, thick, golden, alive. Day after day the fruit shrank under the sun's gentle watch. The water left it, but not the flavor. What remained was pure essence, the soul of the fruit, condensed and strong. A raisin carried the brightness of a grape, only quieter. A fig kept the perfume of summer, only deeper. When the work was done, the dried fruit was gathered and stored in small cloth sacks or clay jars. They were tied carefully, like treasures. For in the months when frost came and fields slept, these little pieces of summer were life itself. Travelers carried them too. A pouch of dried fruit was food that could last through miles of dust and wind. It weighed little but gave much: sweetness, strength, and the small joy of something soft in a world of hardness. A handful could lift the spirit as surely as it filled the stomach. In cold kitchens during winter, families shared them by the hearth. Children would take figs between their fingers, pressing to feel the tiny seeds inside. They would bite and smile, the sweetness spreading slowly, sticky and rich. The elders would chew them slowly, eyes half closed, as if listening to the memory of summer in every bite. The taste of dried fruit was more than flavor. It was time itself preserved. It told of orchards heavy with fruit, of laughter under trees, of warm air and bright days. Even in darkness, one could close their eyes and taste sunlight. Sometimes the fruits were softened again, soaked in warm water or wine, turned into stews or baked into cakes. The scent that rose then was gentle and familiar, sweet, earthy, touched with spice. The dried fruit melted into everything it touched, carrying warmth into bread, into porridge, into the slow rhythm of winter life. Merchants prized them as well. Boxes of figs and dates traveled far, across mountains and seas, traded for salt, grain, or silk. They were tokens of comfort, of sweetness that could endure. To gift dried fruit was to send a bit of sunlight, something precious in a time when light itself could be rare. And perhaps that is what made them loved by all, rich or poor, child or elder, because sweetness, once found, wants to be shared. Imagine now a small bowl on a wooden table. Inside lie a few dried plums, a handful of raisins, a slice of golden date. The fire flickers nearby, its glow soft upon the fruit's skin. You reach for one, feel its weightless warmth between your fingers, and take a bite. It's soft but firm, sweet but calm, the taste spreading like light through still water. You chew slowly, and the flavor deepens, unfolding memories that are not yours, but feel familiar. The sun, the earth, the waiting, all there, quiet and kind. Outside, the wind presses against the shutters. Inside, time feels suspended. The sweetness lingers, and for a moment, you remember how the world once ripened under the sky, how hands worked gently with what was given, how Nothing was wasted, how even endings could be made into beginnings, and that's what dried fruit is, after all. A small act of hope. A promise kept through the cold. A reminder that even when light fades, something of it can remain. So let the taste stay with you as you rest. Let it hum softly, like warmth beneath the snow. Each bite a memory, each sweetness a whisper. The sun saying, "I will return." And when the fire grows low and sleep begins to fold around you, remember, even in the quietest night, the sweetness of the past is still there, waiting patiently just like the fruit. Soft, simple, eternal. Blood pudding, the warm, dark meal. In the heart of winter, when the air was sharp and the sky pale as iron, kitchens filled with a quiet kind of work. Smoke curled lazily from the chimneys, and the scent of spice and salt hung in the cold. Inside, a pot warmed by the fire waited patiently, while hands moved with calm familiarity, stirring, measuring, folding warmth into what would become the day's meal. This was not a dish of luxury, but of need. Yet it carried its own small comfort. Blood pudding, dark and savory, was born from thrift and care. Nothing was wasted. Every part of the animal, every grain of the harvest had a place. It was food shaped from gratitude, for what was given and for what could last. The blood was fresh, still warm from the morning's work, whisked gently with a wooden spoon until it thickened and shone. Into it went handfuls of oats, chopped onions, bits of suet and spice, pepper, sage, and a whisper of salt. The mixture was dark as wet earth, but it smelled of life. Rich, grounding, honest. It was rolled into small rounds, soft and glistening, then set into a pan where fat already waited. The moment the first piece touched the heat, the sound filled the room. A soft hiss, a bubbling sigh. The edges browned slowly, the scent deepened, smoky and warm. The firelight danced upon the surface, turning it the color of dusk. Outside, frost clung to the windows, but inside, the air was thick with the promise of food. Real food, the kind that anchors the body and steadies the spirit. The people who made it didn't speak much as they cooked. The work was rhythmic, almost meditative, the kind of cooking that doesn't just fill the stomach, but quiets the day. When the puddings were done, they rested on a wooden board. The sound they made when lifted was soft, their surface crisp but tender within. A knife slid through easily, revealing the heart, dark, rich, steaming faintly in the cool air. The first bite was always slow, the texture smooth but full, the taste deep and savory with a hint of smoke. A warmth spread through the body almost instantly, not from spice, but from nourishment. It was food that reminded you of the earth, of fields, of harvests, of the quiet cycle of giving and taking. In those long winters, this dish meant survival. It was eaten with bread, or sometimes with nothing at all. A small piece could carry someone through the cold hours, keeping strength alive when the wind howled and the nights stretched endlessly. Children would wrinkle their noses at first, the dark color, the smell of the pan. But once they tasted it, they understood. It wasn't sweetness they found there, but depth. A taste that felt like safety, like something you could trust. Even the rich who could afford finer foods did not entirely turn away from it. In grander homes, the pudding was shaped neatly, served beside apples or onions roasted in honey. In humbler places, it was eaten straight from the pan, still sizzling, but in every place it carried the same heart, warmth, resilience, and gratitude. The smell lingered long after the meal was done, a faint trace of smoke and spice, a whisper of comfort that clung to the walls. It mixed with the scent of wood and wool and winter air. It was the kind of smell that made a house feel alive. If you close your eyes, you can imagine it. The glow of the fire, the soft chatter of pots, the faint pop of fat in the pan. A plate of small, round puddings cooling slowly on the table. Someone reaches for one, breaks it open, and the warmth escapes like breath in the cold. The taste is rich, grounding, kind in its own rough way, not sweet, not gentle, but honest, like the people who made it. It was a food that said, "You are still here." A small victory in a hard season.
And so it became more than sustenance. It became ritual. The act of turning what might have been discarded into something nourishing. The art of finding warmth in what remained.
Now, centuries later, the thought of it still carries that same feeling. The strength of the ordinary, the quiet dignity of making do. The world outside can be cold and vast, but somewhere, in memory or in dream, there is a fire burning low, and a pan of small puddings crisping softly in its glow. You sit near the warmth, the air rich with smoke and comfort. You take a bite, slow and steady. The flavor unfolds, dark, salty, real. It fills you completely. And as the wind hums beyond the walls, you understand why this meal stayed through the ages, because even in the darkest days, it tasted like home. Pancakes, simple joys of morning. In the quiet hum of a medieval morning, when the air was cool and pale with mist, a pan warmed above the hearth. The fire cracked softly, its glow gentle and low, and someone stood nearby with a bowl, a simple mixture of flour, eggs and water. Sometimes a little ale was added, thin and sweet, to make the batter light. Nothing fancy, nothing wasted, just what was needed. The spoon moved in slow circles, folding air into the mixture. The sound of stirring was soft, steady, almost soothing, like the rhythm of breath. When the batter was ready, thick and smooth, it was poured carefully onto the pan. The moment it touched the hot fat, the air filled with a tender hiss. Tiny bubbles appeared, and the edges began to brown, turning the color of honey. Each pancake was made one at a time, unhurried. The scent that rose was warm and comforting, a mix of grain and fire, and something faintly sweet. In small homes and large kitchens alike, this sound and smell were the same. The quiet promise of breakfast, of a day beginning gently. The first pancake was always for the cook. Crisp at the edges, soft in the center. Eaten quickly, often standing with fingers or a small piece of bread to catch what fell. Then came more, stacked slowly, golden circles of warmth gathering on a plate. Some mornings, honey was drizzled over them, glowing like liquid sunlight. It clung to the surface, sliding into every curve, soaking through to the heart of the bread. Other times, when sweetness was scarce, a pinch of salt took its place, humble, grounding and good. No one thought of them as special. They were food for everyone, for workers, travelers, families gathered before the day's long tasks. Children would wait near the fire, their eyes wide, watching the batter bubble and rise. Each pancake that lifted from the pan was met with quiet delight. It was a simple joy, but a real one. The kind of food that felt like kindness, soft, warm, and enough. The pancakes were thicker than the ones we know today, heavier too, but they carried the same feeling. Comfort, wrapped in simplicity. A moment to pause before the world began again. In villages, the smell of them would drift through open doors, mingling with morning air. It wasn't grand or luxurious, just home. And that was all it needed to be. Sometimes a bit of dried fruit or a spoon of ale made its way into the batter. Sometimes nothing but flour and water and care. Yet every version tasted of the same thing: warmth shared. Imagine now that you are there. The firelight flickers across stone walls, and the first light of day slips through the small window. You sit near the hearth, the plate warm in your hands. A soft bite melts on your tongue. Golden, plain, perfect. It tastes of quiet mornings, of beginnings without hurry, of comfort without asking. You take another bite, and the world feels still for a moment. The fire murmurs, the air smells of grain and smoke, and you breathe slowly, full, content, safe. This was the gift of those mornings, a simple meal that made the day seem gentle, no matter how hard the work ahead might be. Just flour, eggs, and warmth, turned into peace. Wafers, the whisper of sweetness. On a quiet afternoon, when the sun fell in slanted light across stone streets, there was a smell that drifted through the air, faint, toasty, and warm. It came from the corners of the marketplace, where small iron presses hissed softly over coals, and a thin stream of batter was poured with care. Within moments, the scent turned sweet, the sound gentle, a sigh, a crisping, a promise of something light. The batter was simple: flour, water, maybe a bit of milk or honey if one could spare it. It was whisked until smooth, thin as whisper, then ladled carefully between two patterned irons. When the press closed, the air filled with a quiet psh, the sound of steam and warmth meeting metal. In a minute, sometimes less, the press was opened, and there it was, a golden wafer, delicate as paper, curled slightly at the edges. The iron left faint marks upon its surface, little flowers or lines that caught the light. When lifted, it crackled softly, fragile but strong enough to hold its shape. Vendors would stack them high, a tower of gold so thin it seemed the air might blow them away. People passed by, travelers, children, merchants, and bought them warm. Some folded them gently, some broke them in halves. They snapped cleanly, the sound light and satisfying. On the tongue, the wafer melted quickly, leaving behind a taste of grain and faint sweetness. It wasn't heavy, it wasn't meant to be, just enough to make the mouth remember pleasure, to make the heart pause for a moment in the middle of a busy day. It was a food of simplicity, the kind that didn't belong to the rich or the poor, but to everyone. A coin or two could buy a handful. A bit of comfort, portable and pure. Children loved them most. They would stand near the vendor, watching the iron open and close, eyes wide with wonder, as each thin sheet appeared, hot and golden. They'd laugh when the wafer cracked too soon in their hands, or when it curled as it cooled, forming soft spirals like autumn leaves. Sometimes the wafers were brushed with honey, sometimes sprinkled with spice, sometimes left plain, their beauty lying in lightness. Each one was a small miracle of balance, hot metal, thin batter, and perfect timing. The sound of them filled the street, that crisp snap, that gentle crumble. For a moment, even the noise of the market softened around it. It was a quiet music of its own. If you listen now, you might still hear it, faint and bright, a note from centuries past. The soft crackle of warmth turning into sweetness. Imagine holding one now. It rests between your fingers, thin and warm. You lift it to your lips. Take a bite. The air seems to shimmer for a moment. The wafer breaks, melts, vanishes, leaving behind a trace of sweetness that's more feeling than taste. There's something tender in that. Food that disappears almost as soon as you find it. Like breath, like memory. The medieval streets are gone, but the simplicity remains. The comfort of something light, fleeting and kind. A moment of sweetness that asks for nothing and lingers anyway. Candied fruit, the taste of gentle time. In the hush of an old kitchen where the air was heavy with the scent of sugar and fire, a small pot simmered quietly. Inside, slices of fruit, plums, pears, oranges, and sometimes even rose hips, swayed slowly in a pool of golden syrup. The light from the window touched the pot, and everything seemed to glow. This was the making of candied fruit, a tender craft, half patience, half memory. It was not a hurried process. Each piece of fruit was washed, cut, and laid carefully into the bubbling sweetness. The syrup, made of honey or sugar and water, thickened with time, wrapping the fruit in warmth. The scent filled the room, bright, calm, and kind. As the mixture cooked, the fruit softened but did not fall apart. Its colors deepened, yellow into amber, red into wine, green into gold. It was as if the heat coaxed the sunlight back into them. The spoon moved slowly, stirring just enough to keep the syrup from sticking. Around it, the world grew quiet, the way it often does when something simple and beautiful is happening. Hours later, when the syrup had turned glossy and rich, the fruit was lifted out one piece at a time. It glistened, warm and soft, each slice coated in a thin, shining veil. Placed upon a wooden board to cool, it hardened just enough to hold its shape. The surface turned faintly crisp, like sugar glass, while the inside stayed tender, full of gentle sweetness. The first taste was always slow, the soft crackle of the candy shell giving way to fruit that still held its soul. It was sweet, yes, but not sharp. The honey or syrup had taken the fruit's brightness and turned it mellow, like sunlight passing through fog. The flavor lingered long after the bite was gone, leaving only warmth behind. People made it not for feasts, but for moments of calm. It was food for in-between times. The quiet afternoons, the slow evenings after work, the days when the air was cool and still. The fruit was wrapped carefully in small pieces of cloth or stored in jars lined with wax paper. Each piece was a treasure to be kept, to be shared when the heart wanted something kind. In winter, when fresh fruit was only a memory, candied fruit brought back the taste of summer. Children would be given a small piece on cold days, their faces lighting up as the sweetness spread. Travelers carried them on long roads, the scent reminding them of home. And in quiet households, people would open their jars, take one piece, and let it dissolve slowly, a way to remember the warmth of seasons past. Sometimes spices were added, a touch of cinnamon, a breath of clove. Other times it was just fruit and honey, nothing more. Yet even then it felt like luxury, not because it was rare, but because it was made with care. There was a calmness in its making, a gentleness in its taste. Every step, from slicing to stirring to waiting, was an act of patience, of listening. It wasn't only food, it was a way of slowing the world down, one bubble at a time. Imagine it now, the soft, golden light of a fire, the scent of sweetness in the air. On the table, a small dish of candied fruit gleams faintly, like jewels under glass. You pick one up between your fingers. Cool, smooth, delicate. The sugar catches the light as you take a bite. It breaks softly. The flavor unfolds. Sweet, soft, lingering. It fills your mouth the way a memory fills your mind, slowly, completely, kindly. And in that taste, there is the feeling of time itself. Slow, patient, gentle. The kind of time that belongs to warm hands, quiet hearts, and small joys. A sweetness not meant to dazzle, but to comfort. Fried eel, the river's quiet gift. By the edge of the river, where the air smelled of damp earth and reeds, people once gathered to cook the day's catch. The water moved slowly, murmuring against the stones, and the last light of afternoon touched everything in shades of gold. From the baskets came eels, long, smooth, glistening with the memory of the current. They were humble, familiar, and good. In the small kitchens of river towns, eel was a common friend. Cleaned carefully, sliced into neat pieces, it waited in wooden bowls beside the fire. A pan of oil warmed over the coals, shimmering faintly, catching the scent of the air. When the oil began to whisper, that soft, promising sound, the eel went in. The moment it touched the heat, the world seemed to pause. Then came the gentle hiss, steady, calming, like rain on leaves. The skin curled slightly, turning from pale to gold, the edges crackling into crispness. The smell spread through the room, rich but not heavy, a warm sweetness that mingled with the smoke of the fire. Each piece was turned slowly, the cook's movements unhurried. Time wasn't measured by clocks but by the color of the eel, the tone of the sizzle. When it was ready, the skin was browned and delicate, the meat beneath soft as silk. Lifted from the pan, it rested for a moment on rough paper or cloth, the last traces of oil glinting like dew. Eel was food of the water, and so it belonged to the people who lived by it. Fishermen, ferrymen, travelers who followed the river's bends. It was simple to make, nourishing, and kind to the body after a day of work. Those who could not afford finer meats found comfort in it. Those who could still loved it for its taste. Some would eat it plain, the crisp skin and soft flesh needing nothing else. Others dipped it in a little salt or vinegar, or added herbs from the garden. Thyme, parsley, maybe a hint of garlic if they had it. The flavor was clean and deep, like the river itself. Quiet, but full of life. Children learned to love it too, though they often wrinkled their noses at its shape before the first bite. But once they tasted it, their faces softened, eyes bright with surprise. It was not what they expected. Gentler, lighter, with a sweetness hidden beneath the salt. In the evenings, families would sit close by the fire, the sound of the river outside blending with the soft crackle of oil. Bowls of fried eel were passed around, steam curling upward like breath. Conversation was low, slow, comfortable. The kind that fills a home more with warmth than with words. It was a dish for quiet nights, for times when the world felt still and the heart wanted something simple. Not grand, not heavy, just enough. Each piece gave both nourishment and peace, a reminder that the river gave what it could, and that was always enough. Sometimes, on feast days, the eel was cooked with wine or herbs, its skin glazed until it shone. Other times, it was packed in salt for journeys, a traveler's meal that could last for days. But whether grand or plain, it carried the same spirit, the steady generosity of the river. Imagine it now, the glow of a fire reflected on the water, the sound of cooking soft and rhythmic. You sit near the hearth, a small plate before you. The eel glistens faintly, golden at the edges. You lift a piece, crisp, warm, and take a bite. It gives easily beneath your teeth, tender inside, rich without being heavy. The taste stays with you, warm, earthy, familiar. It feels like home, even if you've never been there. The night deepens outside, but inside, the light of the fire flickers gently. The air smells of oil, wood, and something faintly sweet. The last echo of the meal. You lean back, content, your hands still warm from the bowl. And you understand why they loved it so, not for its rarity, but for its honesty. A river's gift, golden and kind, a quiet comfort shared by all. Epilogue. The quiet rhythm of old meals. As evening settles, the streets grow soft. Stone walls breathe out the warmth of the day, and a faint mist drifts through the narrow lanes. Somewhere near the corner of a quiet street, a small fire flickers beneath an iron pan. The cellar stands beside it, half in shadow, half in the glow of the coals. There is no noise, no rush, no crowd. Only the steady crackle of cooking, the soft hum of air, and the scent of something warm and kind. The smoke rises slowly, carrying with it the perfume of bread, oil, and sweetness. It curls through the air like memory, gentle and familiar. People pass by, a traveler with tired steps, a child holding a coin, a woman with her shawl pulled close. Each pauses, drawn not by hunger alone, but by the calmness of the scene. The food is simple, bread toasted over flame, a piece of fruit glazed in honey, a small cake fried in oil. Yet each one carries warmth, each one holds care. The street glows in muted tones, orange from the fire, blue from the fading sky. The smoke weaves through it all, soft as breath. A seller hands a small pastry to a stranger, smiles and says nothing. The stranger nods, takes a bite, and for a moment, the world feels still. These were not grand feasts, but quiet acts of love, little exchanges that made the night softer. Every meal, no matter how small, was a way of saying we are here and we are cared for. The food itself told stories of hands that worked with patience, of fields that gave what they could, of kitchens where warmth was built from almost nothing. A handful of flour, a spoon of honey, a spark of fire, and from that, comfort bloomed. If you close your eyes, you can almost hear it. The sound of a pan hissing, the faint murmur of feet on stone, the sigh of a world moving slowly. The night doesn't hurry, the light doesn't fade too fast. Everything lingers just a little, like sweetness left on the tongue. The air grows cooler, the fire burns lower, the last few wafers crisp on the pan, the honey on them turning gold, then amber. A bit of laughter drifts down the street, soft and tired. Somewhere, a door closes gently. The night hums with peace. In these moments, the rhythm of old life continues, unhurried, tender, true. Food was never only for the body. It was a thread that held people close, a small light against the dark. The sellers pack their baskets, the smoke fades into the dusk, and the world exhales. The scent of sweetness lingers, faint and kind, and as the stars appear, the quiet truth remains that through centuries and change, people have always sought warmth in small things. A loaf of bread, a touch of honey, a meal shared in silence. Now the streets sleep. The fires are gone. But their softness stays in memory, in flavor, in the hush that follows every full heart. Rest now. Let the warmth of those simple meals stay with you, as the night folds gently around your dreams. Rest well, my friend, and may your dreams be gentle and bright.